Good evening and welcome to Opera Kansas's first virtual performance, a celebration of the music, the musicians, and the benefactor behind the Zepick Modern Opera Competition. I'm Matt Levitt, current president of the board for Opera Kansas, and it's exciting to be here with all of you tonight as we negotiate this new world of performance and the new ideas of what opera in a new frontier can look like.
I'm Ashley Winters. I'm Managing Artistic Director of Opera Kansas. And first, I want to thank Nathan Snyder, who we last saw masterfully handle the Opera Kansas stage in the role of Frederick in our leap year production of The Pirates of Penzance, for his beautiful rendition of Nessun Dorma from Puccini's masterwork Turandot. That aria is a particular favorite of Dr. Lyle Zepick, whose vision and support for this amazing art form is the reason that we are here tonight.
A year ago, we planned that this night would be the world premiere of Staggerwing, a new opera commissioned by Opera Kansas through the Zepick Modern Opera Competition. We planned an evening of celebrating the 70th birthday of Dr. Zepick with this new work. But like the rest of the world, the pandemic has interfered with those plans. But we didn't want to pass up the opportunity to celebrate Dr. Zepick's birthday and his support of the work that Opera Kansas has been doing fostering new opera in a modern world.
This evening, we will get to hear from past and present winning composers of the Zepick Modern Opera Competition. And we will revisit the music that we've all fallen in love with and hear new music from a runner-up composer whose work is our next Operation Education project, Mr. Twister and the Tale of Tornado Alley. And the big present in tonight's celebration is we will get to hear an aria from Staggerwing, sung for the very first time.
The past, the present, and the future are all a part of the Zepick Modern Opera Competition. Beneath Suspicion was the winner of the inaugural competition, an amazing story with enthralling music. It is my pleasure to reintroduce you to composer Jesse Ayers.
Hi, my name is Jesse Ayers. I was very honored to be the winner of the very first Opera Kansas Zepick Modern Opera Composition Competition for my work Beneath Suspicion, a one-act opera that tells a true but almost forgotten chapter of American history of two incredibly brave women, one white, one black, who worked together as friends to fight against slavery during the American Civil War. The Opera Kansas Zepick Modern Opera Composition Competition is a marvelous program that encourages the creation of new music, encourages living composers to continue creating music for our time, and encourages the creation of music meant for live performance and opera easily taken out to the people. I'm sure I speak for composers of opera, performers of opera, and fans of opera when I express gratitude for Dr. Zepick's vision, support, and financial underwriting for such a terrific program that brings encouragement to composers and new repertoire to opera companies, especially our regional and community companies, and brings music drama to an expanding audience. What attracted me to the Zepick contest was that it was specifically looking for smaller works with a strong educational component. In my case, American history and women's history. Works that could be taken to the people rather than people having to dress up in tuxedos and evening gowns to come to the opera. Taken to venues such as schools or community events, such as the downtown Wichita Arts Fest, where the Kansas premiere took place. Venues where, especially for the school children, those who are unfamiliar with modern opera can be introduced to the power of music drama while simultaneously learning an important but forgotten story from our history. Because of Opera Kansas and the Zepick contest, I had the great honor to visit Wichita for my first time and to attend the last few rehearsals and the performances and the opportunity to meet and work with Ashley Winters, Jasmine Jackson, Sherry Pilgreen, and Executive Director Rebecca White. They were all such a joy to work with, all so musical, all so dedicated to high artistic standards, and all such warm, welcoming people. And especially, my wife and I had the great honor to meet Dr. and Mrs. Zepick, who graciously took us out for lunch, where we had the opportunity to talk with each other about music and the role of arts in our communities. Most of my music like my piece that won the Zepick Prize, is quite dramatic and deals with core life issues: purpose, faith in the face of adversity, choosing right in the face of opposition, walking into one's destiny, always with themes of hope, reconciliation, renewal, and restoration.
It's my pleasure to have Jasmine Jackson returning to the Opera Kansas stage, singing for us tonight in her role as Mary Bowser in the aria of Conviction and Empowerment, My People Been Dying for Years, from Jessie Ayres' Beneath Suspicion.
Good people on both sides die every day. My people been dying for years. Life sucked out of them day after day, month after month, year after year. And now when a chance to do something about it is laid right at my feet, will I turn tail and flee to Tarshish like old Jonah? No, ma'am, it's for such a time as this that this hereafter will rise up and place her fate in the hands of Almighty
We're here with the man behind the Zepick Modern Opera Competition, Dr. Lyle Zepick, and Rebecca Zepick White, past president of Opera Kansas. Good evening to the both of you.
Hey.
So we're just going to jump right in. This is such an exciting evening, a tribute to you, Dr. Zepick, as well as an opportunity for opera fans around the globe to hear the winners, to hear the music that has won the past 3 installments of the Zepick Modern Opera Competition. And I'm very curious, could you tell us what was the spark that ignited this opera competition? How did the idea get born? And just kind of walk us through the beginning.
I had a daughter that got the opera bug when she was in high school. And, you know, at some point in time, all art forms need to evolve. And without music, there's no opera. And if you look over a period of time, all forms of music, including classical and classical voice, there's been an evolution. The human ear is the same, but we have to intrigue the new human ear with new music. And we felt one of the best ways is to start to create some new music for modern culture to sustain interest in the classical voice.
And you, part of your personal mission, almost part of your manifesto, is preserving the classical voice. I've read that about you. I've heard that mentioned several times. And can you talk with us a bit about your idea of how modern opera helps preserve the classical voice? Because when you say it that way, it's almost like you're talking extremes a bit. Can you talk on that?
There's no doubt the greatest instrument in the world is human voice. Classical voice and opera is the only art form that carries it to its heights. And until you've heard it live and experienced it, you don't realize that. And so at some point in time, I think we came to the notion that again, we had to re-engage the modern ear with the classical voice. So again, Becky was the president at the time, and she said, what are we going to do to move Opera Kansas forward? It was an organization somewhat in evolution at the time, and so that was one of the ideas that came forward as to might give a little bit of direction to the organization, but also stimulate interest from everybody. People that were interested in composition, performing, and maybe people interested in hearing. The other thing about Opera Kansas that was very interesting is that it takes classical voice into places where a lot of people don't necessarily go. Number one, schools. If you understand the history of a lot of classical music, the songs that we hear that were written many years ago in modern opera were folk songs. People knew them in their childhood and they became songs. And so the nice thing about Opera Kansas is they're taking classical voice into schools. They're also taking classical voice into public venues where somebody wouldn't think you would do that. They do it free, they do it at their own expense, but they're attempting to catch the human ear and the human mind with the greatest instrument there is.
Rebecca, you were president of Opera Kansas during that time of transition that Dr. Zepick mentioned. What all did you see come to fruition during your time there? What growth was there?
You know, Opera Kansas was kind of at a crossroads. They'd been in existence for about 27 or 8 years at that point. And like many companies their size in the United States, they kind of were having a reality check. We kind of had this soul-searching moment as a board and as an organization, and said, what do we like that we have done in the past that we wanted to keep, but really who were we going to be for the next 30 years or so? And for about a year, we had a kitchen sink approach. I mean, if someone dreamed it up, we tried it, and it made for a really fun year. And the ZMOC kind of came time, and it was actually really great as a board because we throw anything out and see how it went, and it was received. And what we were happy to see that particularly the ZMOC got a lot of interest from composers at a national and even international level right away. The city of Wichita really liked it because it was a very unique thing that was going on, and to see that people were investing in creating something new. One thing I always kind of thought, if the only books we read were Shakespeare, and I love Shakespeare, but if the only books you were exposed to was Shakespeare and those, you might not be interested in reading books. So the same idea, I think, applies in opera, that if you are only hearing Mozart, and I love Mozart and Puccini, then you might say, well, that's neat, but what does that have to do with my life in this century? And we have to remember that when those composers were writing, they were writing about current. The audience knew. You explain the relationship between a count and a servant, or the political climate in Italy, when Verdi was writing. So sometimes it's about telling modern stories that connect. And I think using the classical to tell that. And what's been neat, I think, about the ZMOC and Dad has done is he said it doesn't have to sound a certain way. It doesn't have to fit in what we think of as the opera box. It can have a jazzy set, just very different sound. Classical voice is used properly and can kind of show its range of what it can do inside the composition.
It's interesting that when Mozart had an oboe that continued with the same note through a suite, everybody rioted. When Stravinsky did Rite of Spring, people pounded the floor. These have become mainstream loved pieces of music. And so to stay where we have always been, I think it was a mistake, and it was time to go somewhere new.
Ashley, as president of Opera Kansas, we talk about, breaking the mold a little bit, expanding people's idea of what opera is. What is your vision for the future of Opera Kansas with modern opera?
I thoroughly believe that what we're doing is the future of opera. Smaller, more intimate shows that speak to people in a more one-on-one sort of relationship is where I believe opera is going to thrive. But I think that for a lot of people, we're seeking connection. And in this, when we go out to different places where we meet people where they are, or in places where they would least expect it, with stories that they actually can connect with in English. That's another one of our big points, is that we want to be able to speak in the language of our audience. I think that people find magic that they never knew existed, or magic that they never thought that they would want to participate in. And I actually came to the Zepick Modern Opera Competition not being the managing artistic director of the company. I was actually, I sang one of the first roles in the very first show. So I was just a singer who was looking for something to do, and it was so rewarding to create something new. And I think that this competition gives us opportunities. The music that comes from this gives us opportunities to connect with people of all different ages, of all different backgrounds. And I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity, both as having been a singer, to do that, and then now also on sort of the more managerial side of it, to be able to make these connections with not only people here in our community, but the composers and people from all around the world. It's an amazing opportunity on so many different levels.
Dr. Zepick, when you first read through the proposal for Staggerwing, what did you think?
Well, number one, I was amazed at the number of opportunities that were presented for us, and I had to wean them down to 5, and Staggerwing was part of it. The story, of course, is part of our history, flight, and the composer had proved herself in a number of the submissions. So the decision was really a decision of the committee that I supported, but I thought it was very exciting. And it created an opportunity both for the city of Wichita and some of those companies that have been part of our history to be part of an art form that we hope endures.
When we talk about patronage, and those of us who have an opportunity to give of our time or our resources to industry that we love so deeply, there are no shortage of performing arts organizations, no shortage of ensembles, symphonies, classical, vocal ensembles, opera companies, even in the state of Kansas. Why Opera Kansas?
Why Opera Kansas? Number one, it's in my hometown. And second of all, I have connection with the people, obviously, that are in it. And again, they had a proposal to do something different with opera that was going to prepare music for the modern ear. And so I don't know anybody else that has that vision right now. In fact, I think a lot of the opera companies are stumbling around a little bit trying to decide what their next year or two is going to be. Funding's been a problem. Big classical operas are very expensive to produce. And there's a lot of competition in the entertainment industry right now. So Opera Kansas was going to try something different and interesting.
It sure is different, and it sure is interesting. And what an incredible few years of growth with Opera Kansas. It's just been a wonder to watch happen. And I think anybody who's been to an Opera Kansas production in the past few years will agree that there's just amazing things happening. And we all so look forward to gathering together for the premiere of Staggerwing. In the meantime, we get to talk together like this. We get to celebrate your birthday, Dr. Zepick. This project kind of coincides with your birthday, I hear. Is it the best birthday present you've ever been given? Oh, it's a world premiere.
It's pretty exciting, that's for sure. The times have changed the timing, yes, obviously, but it sounds like something that I hope people will enjoy, and we're looking forward to it.
Well, we sure are. Thank you, everybody, for talking. And Dr. Lyle Zepick, thank you so much for your intense passion for the art form and your patronage.
Thank you, Caitlin, Dr. Zepick, and Rebecca, for sharing your thoughts, your time, and your resources with Opera Kansas. We hope this celebration of our combined efforts will continue to inspire as it has in the past. The response Opera Kansas received from both audiences and composers after the success of the first Zepick Modern Opera Competition made us realize we had to keep doing it.
For the 2018 competition, we requested specifics for the opera. It had to be written with a STEAM theme, a science, technology, engineering, art, and math opera for children between the ages of 5 and 12, and it had to be between 35 and 40 minutes in length with an interactive role for children to play. And if it had a Kansas twist to it, that would be a big bonus. A very tough call for scores that yielded a very special opera that has been delighting children, young and old, all over Wichita.
Mr. Invention is the invention of Anthony R. Green, the winner of the 2018 Zepick Modern Opera Competition. The relationship between Anthony and Opera Kansas is a great example of the relationships that develop between living composers and the musicians performing their works, and how that changes everyone. We're so excited to connect with Anthony again tonight.
Hello everyone, my name is Anthony Green and I'm the composer of Mr. Brewster's Invigorating Invention, an opera for children young and old. As a young emerging composer, it's super important to have that first performance of a piece, especially when that piece is longer than your average piece and requires more forces. Therefore, the opportunity that's extended by Opera Kansas and so generously sponsored by Dr. Zepick is a godsend for young emerging composers. Not only do the winners get a chance to hear their operas performed in their entirety by some wonderful, wonderful musicians, but also the prize comes with some money, which is great for young composers who are trying to support themselves with their art. After the Zepick Modern Opera Competition, I tweaked the score just a little bit so I can make it more presentable and more professional for other people considering performance opportunities. And luckily, I was approached by one of my friends who is the director of Opera in a Can from Towson University. She decided to program Mr. Brewster's Invigorating Invention for the 2019-2020 season of Opera in a Can, and that also included a wonderful opportunity to have the piece produced in collaboration with Annapolis Opera. It did give me such great pride to know that other companies were interested in this opera and that Opera in a Can did produce it successfully. So I'm so much more confident about approaching other opera companies in the future to produce this piece as part of children's programming and community programming. One really cool thing about winning Zepick was that I got to travel to Wichita and see my piece performed in its entirety live. It was also my first time traveling to Wichita, so it was great to be led by such wonderful people around the city, going to the museum and seeing the Chihuly, and going in to see the Native American statue that looks over the Arkansas. Also, it was just wonderful to meet the singers and the staff of Opera Kansas, as well as meeting Dr. Zepick and his lovely wife and family. It was so great just going to dinner and hanging out and talking about music and life. They're such wonderful, wonderful people, and I just feel so blessed to be part of the Opera Kansas family. This is one of those added benefits that you get by winning the Zepick Modern Opera Competition. And it's not so easy to write that on a call for scores in a competition, but this is one thing that composers really should know about applying to this competition and winning. You get to meet some wonderful, wonderful people and make some really wonderful friendships that will last your entire life. So thank you so much, Opera Kansas, for not only believing in me and my opera, but for extending this opportunity to composers everywhere. And I hope that this program continues on for a very, very long time.
There girls and boys. They are called philosophical toys. The purpose of these toys for you is to have fun and learn something too. You can call them optical toys as well. Once you see them, you fall right under their spell. The magic lantern is mighty fine. It was made in 1659. It took glass slides that were so small and projected pictures onto the wall. The thaumatrope was pretty neat. Spin a disc and see the image complete. The ornithoscope, another household fixture. Spin a disc and see the original picture. Another invention that gave these toys much hope is a 3D toy called a stereoscope. The zoetrope was a great sensation, an early example of animation. Another example that really cooks. In 1858 came the great flip books. But the world never said nope when I invented the kaleidoscope. Another philosophical toy that brings everybody much joy, the kaleidoscope.
That was Philosophical Toys, an aria from Mr. Brewster's Invigorating Invention by composer Anthony R. Green. And singing that, my favorite aria from the show tonight was Lane Stanberry. And Lane is a recent graduate of Friends University. He is one of Opera Kansas's emerging artists. And Lane has been representing the role of Mr. Brewster in schools and communities to children all over Wichita for the last year or so. And it's been a great opportunity to work with Lane and to continue taking this music out into the world. One of the things that the 2018 Zepick Modern Opera Competition yielded for us was not just one great show, but a second one. And so we decided that we needed to have a runner-up position for the 2018 competition. And the second show is Mr. Twister and the Tale of Tornado Alley by Mark Hoftitz. And Mark is here tonight to give us some ideas about how awesome it is that even if you're not the winner of a particular competition, the opportunities to get your show performed, how important that is, and how being able to apply to a competition like the Zepick Modern Opera Competition, how that helps composers even if you're not the winner.
Hi, my name is Mark Hoffitz, and I am a composer living in Boston, Massachusetts. I was a runner-up for the 2018 Zepick Modern Opera Competition for my children's opera, Mr. Twister and the Tale of Tornado Alley, which tells a story of Mr. Twister, an eclectic meteorologist who teaches his grandson in the audience about the formation of tornadoes and the science that goes behind them. It also teaches about the safety precautions you should take when these natural disasters are approaching. I was really excited that Opera Kansas wanted to take the opportunity to mount a full production of this piece this past spring. Although the production is currently on hold, I'm very excited that an excerpt of the work will be performed as part of the celebration. It really makes a difference knowing that your piece is going to be performed and produced by an opera company, because so much of the initial creation of an opera is very lonely. You're usually just cooped up in a room with paper and pencil and maybe a piano, just trying to get these weird ideas out of your brain and into a tangible form. So once it's past the creation phase and it's passed along to a company, it's really beautiful what can come out of those collaborations. Getting to meet all the artistic staff, getting to work with the performers to really bring this new piece and idea to life. I think that writing a children's opera isn't terribly different than writing an opera for adults. You still want to tell a story that is engaging. You still want to present characters that are interesting and diverse and ones that still emotionally resonate with the audience. Kids are really, really smart, and I think they're attuned to a lot of complexities that we don't always give them credit for. An opportunity I really wanted to take with this opera in particular was to create interactive elements where the characters are talking to the audience and kind of commenting on the plot as they are going through this scientific scenario. In terms of writing an science opera, science is not my background whatsoever, but I got to be kind of a student of my own in learning about how are tornadoes formed. I worked with a meteorologist on the plot to make sure that it was still scientifically sound, even though I got to take a lot of artistic license with things. And even though the story is based in science, it really still is a story about families and how they work through their troubles, and in the end, they love each other. I think that if opera wants to continue on as a genre, it is vital that institutions and companies do everything in their power to foster the creation of new works. I think we tend to forget that even the masterpieces, La Bohème, The Marriage Figaro, Rigoletto, they were all originally new works at one point or another. And the reason they became the sensations that they are today is not only because of their compositional integrity, it's because there were producers and companies that were willing to perform them time and time again beyond their premiere. And there was also singers willing to continue to sing the arias from them for masterclasses and various performances. This is something I really appreciate about Opera Kansas through their education through opera. By doing these touring productions of these children's operas, we're not only discussing different subjects of the STEAM curriculum, they're really trying to build the next generation of opera lovers who will go on and continue to support the art form and its future.
So with that, we welcome you all to be the first to hear from this amazing opera, Mr. Twister and the Tale of Tornado Alley. This show was supposed to have had its world premiere in partnership with Exploration Place with a grant from the Mid-America Arts Alliance in March, on what ended up being 4 days after we all went into shutdown. We do still plan to premiere this show, hopefully in the spring of 2021. But we're also using it to develop a new program that we're calling Opera in a Box. And we're hopeful that this new program is going to be something that will help bridge the gap between this time where we can't go into schools, we can't be there in person for everybody's safety, but we still want to provide great education, great music, great stories, and great composers to our communities here in Wichita. So until we can get back into schools, here is the first listening of Morgan Bowie as the South Wind singing In the Gulf of Mexico.
Life is pleasant as can be in the Gulf of Mexico. Come take a break from the mountains and plateau. The weather out here is going to be clear of any ice or snow. Enjoy the sun rays, they go on for days.
Thank you, Morgan. It's certainly exciting story and music. Opera Kansas is looking forward to presenting Mr. Twister in the Tale of Tornado Alley through new and unexpected ways this upcoming season. And now the moment of the evening we've all been waiting for. The 2020 Zepick Modern Opera Competition saw over 100 submissions from composers all over the world. And with us this evening is the winning team of Staggerwing.
It is my pleasure to introduce the recipients of the 2020 Zepick Modern Opera Competition, Lisa Despain, composer, and Rachel Peters, librettist. Welcome and congratulations to the both of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, this is not the first time you've worked together. Can you give us some insight to your history working?
Sure. Well, Lisa and I actually had known each other for a couple of years through a group called Maestra that is musical theater composers who are female. And then we met up again later at the 2018 Opera America Conference in St. Louis. And around that time, the call for submissions for Utah Opera's commissioning initiative came around, and we discussed that and thought that we would pair up and apply for that, and that ended up going really well. And yeah, the rest is history.
No, it was such a pleasure to write with her, and it was a 10-minute opera commission. And so when we saw the call for the Zepick come out, we were like, let's do it. Let's do it again. We had so much fun the first time. We wanted to do it again.
And how did you come across the Opera Kansas call for scores? And what did you think? I mean, have you ever even heard of Opera Kansas? We are, you know, admittedly a small, intimate opera company.
I actually had seen the previous call for scores for, I think it was 2018, I guess. And unfortunately, the timing didn't work out at that moment. And so when I saw this come around again, I got really excited and I thought, oh my God, I'm probably too busy again, but I want to jump on this. I don't want to miss it. And then Lisa wrote to me and said, hey, did you see this? And I was like, okay, I guess that's a sign. You know, we have to do this.
I would say in your defense or credit, it didn't feel small. You know, it did not feel small at all. The notices were coming across, I think I saw it on the American Composers Forum, but there were several postings throughout social media, and pretty much everybody we knew were like talking about it and applying because it was a great opportunity. It was, I mean, it's a golden opportunity. Not many composers get a chance to have that opportunity, that kind of commission. So everybody we knew was applying.
Twitter was buzzing, I remember.
Yeah, I remember that as well. I remember it was a hot topic for a couple of days. And Ashley, how many submissions did you receive this year?
We had 107, I believe, for that actually ended up being complete submissions and were turned over to our committee to sift through and decide what to do with. So we actually did a request for proposals. So we weren't requesting a completed work. The idea, a couple of snippets of idea of melody, and I think that allowed for many composers to get involved because they didn't have to have an already completed work ready to go. So that was the first time for us that we did it like that. And that was actually based on the suggestion of Anthony Green, who was our winner in 2018. So.
And speaking about grand opera versus intimate opera, humongous concert halls versus more intimate venues, Opera Kansas is known for really pushing the envelope. They have operas in the park, operas in the courthouse, operas in the library, and it's very much a part of their mission to have opera in unexpected places in order to make it accessible and fun. How did that play into your composition, to your research, to your whole creative process?
Well, you know, we do a lot of these kinds of applications, and I think that the parameters of the application guide us toward what kind of a story we need to be telling. And I think I was just drawn to it in the first place because I feel like the kinds of stories that I am drawn to telling are smaller, more intimate, And I don't know that the kinds of things that really capture my imagination belong in giant venues. And so this felt like a very comfortable fit for me. I believe that the requirement said something about the unexamined life is not worth living. And also knowing that there's a very rich history in the city where the opera company is located, I thought, okay, what stories are important to where this is? And so I started looking at local history because I haven't really spent any time in Wichita, and I thought I needed to catch up on my education in that regard. And my other question is always, where are the women? So I started looking at women in Wichita history and Kansas history. And, we found out that this is a major hub of the aviation industry. And the name Amelia Earhart was bandied about a little bit, but I thought, there's a lot of stuff out there about her already. And I think there's more to it than that. And I found out about the Bendix race and about Beechcraft, the aircraft company that's located in Wichita, and what a central part of that Bendix race, what a part that played. And yeah, it all just kind of came together serendipitously as I was researching, and the name Staggerwing, of course, jumped out at me. I thought, oh my God, that's a wonderful title.
As soon as she heard that word, she's like on the phone with me, like, Staggerwing, Staggerwing. I'm like, okay, there's the gold, there's the magic, there's the signs for it. Piggybacking on what she said, I've also, as a composer, built my career largely away from the bigger stage. When I started changing from being a jazz performer to being a composer, most of my compositions were symphonic works or residencies. And it really taught me a lot that to involve the community and to involve the stories and to make the art meaningful to your audience, rather than me sitting in a lofty tower trying to create my story. What's the point when I love the writing, I love the composing, and I don't want to make a story that nobody wants to see and that nobody cares about. And the fact that we found these women that we both care about and that are meaningful to the community, and that's also what I'm always looking for when I'm looking for a subject to write about. I'm also, same kind of thing, Amelia comes up, but Amelia is a known, and I'm always really interested in the ordinary story that does a heroic thing, the ordinary person that goes on a heroic journey. And those are the stories that I find so meaningful to tell. So it was just a perfect magical storm when we were working on the idea. And when we hit it, we just knew, you dig. It's like getting through peanut butter. Where's the idea? And the minute it hits, it's like, done. We just knew.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about the aviation industry or the history of these air races going into it at all, but opera is my window into understanding the world. And I think the thing that really clinched it for me was reading even just the first few pages of Louise Thaden's autobiography, the way that she talks about flying as this mystical experience. And I'm a fairly cynical person, and I'm also very afraid of heights, but the way that she describes it is so soulful and poetic and passionate, and it was so moving to me. And I thought, I think if we all were as passionate about anything in the whole world as Louise Thaden was about how meaningful flight was to her and to make advances in that field, I think we would all be much better off. And so I thought, this is a story that we all need to see and absorb. And I was just hooked.
Yeah.
As were we.
Well, and also musically for me, it's the 1930s. This is my wheel well. This is the big band era. This is when, the Duke Ellington and Count Basie and the jazz, we've gone out of the syncopated jazz era, and we are really swinging. And so the 1930s are so rich in American musical sounds too. So everything from the big band to the American songbook, it's all colliding at that time. And of course, with the territory bands, right along in the Kansas territory bands, I was like, that is the music that speaks so much to me. And I've built a career of writing from a jazz perspective, but taking it into storytelling in these different forms that are not jazz forms. So I was, you know, the 1930s, women in planes, opera, yeah.
And the lyricists in
do
the
it.
American Songbook were all musical theater composers too. And so they were storytellers as well as brilliant lyricists. I mean, you have Vernon Duke, you have Yip Harburg, you have Ira Gershwin, you have Cole Porter. I mean, just the top of the top, and the people that I had been learning from my whole life, you know, studying all of their work and learning how good song form is made. And so it was just such a joy to revisit that part of my education and all of the stuff that I loved so much, and to really bring that to life here.
Ashley, you must be over the moon. I mean, look what you've been gifted, and we all get to experience this as an audience in the future together. And I just think what you all have created is just so tailor-made to Opera Kansas, to the general Wichita area. And Ashley, you just must be, you know, pinching yourself.
Well, the funny story is that this submission came in very late at night, and I didn't have anything to do with like choosing really the like how things went in the first couple of rounds. And when I was going through all the submissions in order to get them ready for the committee, and this one popped up, and I went, oh, this one's gonna win. And it was just exactly that. It was tailor-made. It was exactly what we were looking for. I love the fact that it had more female roles than male roles, and because there's a big lack of that in the opera world, and so I just thought that was a good point for it, and also the fact that it was. While it speaks to our local community, our local audiences, I also thought the concept and the idea of it will speak to more people than just people in Wichita, that it will be something that can go beyond our community and reach out to the world, because this is our story. This is not just Wichita's story. It's a human story. And I know that Dr. Zepick, that's what he was looking for. He was looking for a story about humanity and how we need to be better for our world. And it just kind of like, serendipitous is the right term. It all worked together very well. And yes, over the moon is a good way to describe it.
But I just want to take a moment and have each of you speak on the importance of patronage. And it doesn't take much for somebody to be a patron of the arts. It takes, you know, buying season tickets. It takes volunteering your time to be on a board, volunteering your time at the box office, stuffing envelopes, you know, doing some social media. You don't necessarily need the deep pockets to help make the art happen. And we recognize that, as well as this absolutely incredible gift Dr. Zepick is giving to the community by hosting the Zepick Modern Opera Competition. Could you just say a couple of words in honor of him and his birthday about patronage and what it means to you to have somebody like this stepping up and saying, I believe in this art form, I believe in this company, we're going to see it thrive?
I'm soaking it in and trying to think of something really profound, because for me as a composer, it is very difficult to put words to how I feel, which is why I'm a musician. It just means so much on so many different levels, it's hard to define. I would say thank you for the opportunity, because we as composers and artists need these opportunities. If we don't have these opportunities, we don't have the fiscal support, if we don't have the opportunity, our voices aren't heard, and they aren't developed, and they don't grow, and they're silent. And art is so important. See, I'm being very ineloquent about it.
Well, I mean, I can bounce off of what you said, which is that it's not just about what patronage gives to us, but about what we're able to do with what we have innately, you know, of the resources that we have artistically, but then also the resources that patronage adds to that, so that we can expand the repertoire, so that we can expand the ways in which stories are told and the kinds of stories that get told, and to make a more complete and fruitful experience for anybody who's engaging with this art form at all. And the only way that that can ever happen is if people step out on faith and give chances to people who are not household names, who don't have existing relationships, you know, long established with giant opera companies that have more resources to readily distribute to the folks that they are already collaborating with on a regular basis. Anybody who has risen to that level of status had to start somewhere because somebody took a chance on them. And even if that's not where our parachutes ultimately land, to use an aviation metaphor, I guess, you know, there are places for all different kinds of writers and practitioners of this art form. And any form of reaching out to any of us is going to not just help the individual, but help everyone thrive ultimately.
I love to write to have an impact of good, you know, and I'm so excited to hear that the Kansas Aviation Museum is excited because they feel connected. And so, and I love to be in the room with the audience because I write for the audience. I think of my father, who was never an arts guy. He was a zoning commissioner and a fisherman, and you know, opera was not necessarily something he would have gone to, but he went to the arts and he loved it and it enriched his life. And so I always think of like, that person is my audience and how they can come and have an experience and walk away enlightened, joyous, entertained, thinking, thought-provoking, you know, anything like that. So in order for that to happen, the art must be created. So it's this beautiful, bigger than just Rachel and I thing that happens. Again, my words leave me, but it's one of those great human things that we need to have and engage and experience together. Art, storytelling, singing, you know, that's what makes us human. That's what defines us.
Right, and if I understand correctly, part of the reason that this commission exists is for the preservation of the classical voice and classical music. And so I think that what's great about this opportunity is that we're at a particular precipice right now in history, and that because we're dealing with a historical subject, we can take this story and look back and say, okay, how does this apply to women today, to people with any sort of gigantic dreams and aspirations today in the conditions that we're living in now. And I hope that, you know, it will motivate people and inspire them to move forward with whatever they're doing, whether it's flying a plane or, you know, any other sort of barriers that they're trying to break down.
And I'm going to throw in one thing. I am so excited about Olive Ann because to me, it's not just Louise and Blanche. I'm so happy about Olive Ann because Olive Ann is like Dr. Zepick. Somebody on the ground believed. Somebody on the ground believed they could do it and had to be the advocate to open up that opportunity and get them in that plane, despite Walter and despite anybody else. And so when those people who are advocates believe in us, that is also so important to the team. We can't do it without the advocates. We can't do it without those people on the ground.
Rachel, could you give us a brief synopsis of Staggerwing?
Sure. So Staggerwing chronicles the 1936 Bendix aviation race that was flown by several teams. It was the first year, however, that all female aviation teams could compete. Women had competed in the past, but they always had to have a man in the plane with them. So this was the first time that two women as a team were able to compete, and they ultimately won. So now you know the ending, but there's plenty of adventure and drama flashing forward and backward in time, chronicling how that team got put together, how both of the women in the plane, Louise Thaden and her co-pilot Blanche Noyes, came to be pilots, respectively, in the first place, and the various obstacles that they encountered on the ground before they ever got into the plane, and then once they're in the air, all along the way. And we meet several other folks in their lives who are instrumental. It's called Staggerwing because that is the model of plane that they flew. This was a new model Staggerwing C-17. And the reason that they were flying it is because Olive Ann Beach, who co-ran Beechcraft Air with her husband Walter, she thought it would be a really great marketing tool to introduce this new model of plane in this race by having an all-female team. And so there's a parallel story going on about Olive Ann and Walter as well. And they're just incredibly delightful characters, and it's a fun, romantic story about women's tenacity in the aviation industry in a time when the technology was not as far along as it is now, and there were all kinds of social obstacles as well as physical obstacles in their way during that time.
Lisa, we get a sneak peek tonight. We get to listen to an excerpt from your opera. Can you talk to us a bit about what we're about to listen to?
This is the aria, If a Woman Flies. And in this aria, it's the first time you meet Walter and Olive. Walter barges into the office and wonders what's going on. We've got to do something about this Staggerwing. We've got to raise our profits and our marketing. And Olive Ann goes, well, I have an idea. And she says, this is what we're doing. And there's a little back and forth between the two, but ultimately Olive Ann wins.
If a woman flies, she's more than decoration. If a woman flies, it's victory for all. Our Staggerwing is front page news, publicity you can't refuse. We'll see our profits rise if a woman flies. I've got the perfect person in mind. It isn't just any woman we're talking about here. It's Louise, holder of the woman's altitude, endurance, and speed record all at once. Faded. If a woman flies, she's tried and true and trusted. If a woman flies, you've known her for an age. It's not some novice maiden flight. She's breaking records left and right. No choice could be more wise if a woman flies. When the woman flies, it's only the beginning. When the woman flies, it's history reward. The call is made, the deal is done. Besides, you know you owe her one. She'll take that bendix prize. When a woman flies. Sit on your blisters, Walter Beach.
Fantastic. Well, it's been such an incredible pleasure to speak with all three of you and get to know more about Staggerwing and about your process. And it has just been an honor to speak with you. And I am beyond excited for the day to come where we can be in the audience and soak in just the wonder of this world premiere.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it.
For being here.
Thank you.
That's just a taste of things to come. Certainly the pandemic has set us all behind, but we at Opera Kansas are always looking forward and moving forward. And we look forward to bringing Staggerwing to you in all of its glory come April of 2021.
And just a final word of thanks to Caitlin and to Jesse and Jasmine, Anthony and Lane, Mark and Morgan, Lisa, Rachel, and Georgianne for sharing their music, both written and sung for us this evening.
And most of all, we thank Dr. Zepick for his vision and his patronage of Opera Kansas. We look forward to future competitions and opera in the new frontier that all of us here are building together. Happy birthday. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
If a woman flies, she's more than decoration. If a woman flies, it's victory for all. Our Staggerwing is front page news, publicity you can't refuse. We'll see our profits rise if a woman flies. I've got the perfect person in mind. It isn't just any woman we're talking about here. It's Louise, holder of the woman's altitude, endurance, and speed record.